Doing? Well, it's good to see all these bright and bushy-tailed faces this morning, or at least that's what we're going to say, right? Okay. This is a very special part of the entire Daytona Jazz Weekend. This is an opportunity for you to get close and personal with each one of these incredible, talented people. These are the folks that spent their entire weekend entertaining you, and now you get to know a little bit more about them on a personal level, more so than just on a professional level. So again, we want to say thank you for you coming out and being a part of us this weekend. We want to thank Dr. Kathy Powers for putting this thing together. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Thank you, Mark. Real quick before you get started so that we don't, after we get going in a few minutes, if any of you towards the back want to move forward, that's cool. Fill things in so you don't have to sit way in the back. If you want to stay in the back, that's cool too. Just want to let everybody know that some of the keys are going to lock out from the Daytona at 11 o'clock. So if you go back over there, if you want to stop at the desk on your way to your room to be proactive and see about getting your key checked, or if you just want to go to your room and see if it works, whatever. But some of them are going to work and some of them aren't. I'm not sure why, but that was thrown at me this morning, so I just wanted to let you know that that's what's going on. We'll send out, we're hoping that we can get that email out with the renewal tomorrow. If it doesn't go tomorrow, it'll go the next day. Remember, it's the primary account holder that can renew. So if there's 2 people on a reservation, if you're not the primary, that's why you can't get into your reservation. So if you have any questions, don't call me. No, that was a joke. No, I try to do what I can. I am working at the hospital this week, so I do have to work sometimes to pay the other bills. So be patient with me. Text me. Don't worry if something doesn't work and you can't renew. I'm not going to cut you off because you didn't get it done by next weekend, by Saturday. And new guests start next week, so if you have friends and family that want to come, please get them locked in and we'll get you all seated together. Just make sure you check off the group seating. Those of you that are in groups, I know a bunch of you already, but please don't assume that I know who you're with, and if something gets moved, I don't want that to happen. So please, if you're in a group, even though you've been in a group for the last 6 years, put group seating and put the names in the special requests and preferences. That's all I got to say. Thank you again to all of you. Thanks to these amazing artists and our musicians and the people that are here. And thanks to our team, our volunteers. Usually we come up and stand, but we're not going to do that today. Thanks to Go Backline, the production team. Thanks to One Daytona, the property. Thanks to the Daytona Hotel. Thanks to the Fairfield. Thanks to the Daytona Speedway and NASCAR group. And thanks to you all. Thank you.
And thanks again to Dr. Kathy Powers. Absolutely.
Kathy Powers. Now look at this level of talent on this stage. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a Q&A this big, but
absolutely.
These artists have been hanging out all weekend, and they played their hearts out this weekend, didn't they?
So, of course you know who all of these people are, but we're going to start down at this end here, and of course, the incredible Jonathan Butler. Next to him is the amazing Keiko Matsui, the awesome Greg Manning, and the producer with the absolute most. You got to give it up here for Darren Rand. Michael Lincoln, there's no words to describe him. He is what he is. And how about the angelic vocals of Miss Rebecca Jade? Very few times can you say the one and only, the absolute unique, but I could say that every single time about this man to my right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter White. And of course, it would not really be a party without the incredible Richard Elliott. And I call this guy the gentleman talent because I love everything about him and the things that he does and represents. Please give it up for Mr. Rick Braun. And one of my cool buddies, Ace Boone Cool Riding Boys, Mr. Paul Taylor right there. And the meteoric rise of a new talent coming up, ladies and gentlemen. You got to keep your eyes open, your ears closed. This guy is going to be blowing up. Please welcome Mr. B.K. Jackson. And give it up for my co-host and co-moderator, Miss Becky Taylor. I'm Mark Perry, and we're going to get this party started, okay? So I'm going to defer to my co over there. You go ahead and ask your first question.
Well, it's so good to be here. One of the questions that was floating around almost all weekend long was for Paul Taylor and Paul's new do.
All right.
Paul has been growing his dreadlocks for decades, and so one of the questions that somebody asked me is, cutting off the dreadlocks, does that affect your golf game now?
Actually it does. It did. Because, they were so long, and I had them, up the vertical vibe, and I had like as many as 4 clamps keeping them like that. So then when you swing, the shit goes like all sideways. So it's much better now. But besides that, I think it was like 30 plus years having them. And it was time to just a nice change. We're embracing this stuff and going on like that, and no clips.
We're loving it though. We like
You
the
look
new
good.
do.
It's a brand new day. It's a brand new day.
And you said this was, since you celebrated your birthday this weekend, this is your Route 66 year. So new year, new do.
That's right. Thank you.
Love it. Well, all right. Well, my first question is for the incredible vocals of Miss Rebecca Jade. Because you have to ask where the inspiration came from for you to get up and do what you do so incredibly well. What inspired you to sing?
Well, good morning, everybody. What inspired me to sing, I would say, started very, very early, was my mother. My mom is a singer, and before I was even born, she was singing in college. She was singing as a little girl with her father, my grandfather. And from when I was born, and very, very early on, I have a picture of me singing when I was like 5 years old. And I'm singing, and my mom and I would, anytime we were driving anywhere, we would be singing, we'd be listening to music. And she would just expose me to all different types of genres, from gospel to rock, soul, funk, Latin. I mean, because she just loved music. She never expected or forced me to do music. She just said, I want to expose you to something that I love dearly, and that is a part of my DNA, and I want to just share it with you. So she shared it with me, and then I just took to it. I've just been kind of singing my whole life. But we have a funny story. When I was really little, I was probably like, she's trying to teach me how to sing. She's like, okay, like sing from your diaphragm. You got to do. And one day, I'm probably in the other room, and she has company over. She's having lunch or something. A friend is over, and she says, I'm probably like 6 or 7, and I bust into the room. I said, Mommy, I just learned how to use my diaphragm. Which, out of context, people go, what? So my mom had to clarify to this person that it was her breathing diaphragm. And anyway, so that's a little funny family story.
Wow.
But my mom is my inspiration.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Jade. Diaphragm and all.
And we have some incredible, iconic artists on this stage. BK stepping in as an incredible musician, and I know you've played with other artists, but who inspired you, and what does it feel like being on the stage with some of the people that you were actually listening to and being inspired by? So what gave you your inspiration?
I think my inspiration started very, very early. My biological father passed when I was 2. So I had a very unique perspective on dating, because I got a chance to see my mom being courted by my stepdad, who raised me and was a huge smooth jazz fan. And so growing up very early, he would buy CDs and buy 2. So he would buy a Peter White album for himself and a Peter White album for her. and so my family has been supporting you guys for a very long time. but then he would take us Even as a young kid, myself and my little sister, we go to Ruth Eckerd Hall in Clearwater, Florida. Hey, we got some Tampa people in the house. Clearwater, Florida. Go to Ruth Eckerd Hall to go see every summer and every winter one of two shows. That summer show was always the Guitars and Saxes, and that winter show was always Dave Koz and Friends. And going there and seeing them, I had a chance to see so many of these artists and learn so many of their repertoire. From listening to it on the radio on WSJT to seeing them perform it live, it really did strike a huge interest in me in wanting to do this music and wanting to pursue it. I was a drummer at heart, always wanted to be a drummer, still want to be a drummer. And when I got to sixth grade band class, I had every intentions of learning the drum set and performing drum set. Unfortunately, it was more percussion. So you have the snare drum, a cymbal, a block, not timbales, but the timpanis, and so on. But it wasn't necessarily the drum set. But I love music so much from these concerts and these CDs and listening to the radio that, I asked my mom, can I play another instrument? But I didn't know which one to do. And she said, why don't you play the saxophone? Well, I've been going to these concerts and I knew what the drums were, of course. I knew piano, I knew guitars, but I didn't know that Richard Elliott was playing a saxophone. I just knew it was a horn. So I asked her, well, what's a saxophone? And she said, the stuff that you see, Richard Elliott, you see Gerald Albright, Kenny G, Dave Koz, and some Paul Taylor, so many greats down the line. And that was the day I started playing saxophone, and I've been working ever since. And to answer your question of what does it feel like, Peter White reached out to me and asked me to join him on Bueno Funk. And oftentimes I know the songs, but I don't always know the names of the songs, and I've been hearing this song forever. So I'm like, okay, let's learn this song. Boom, 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 boom. I press play, and I'm like, oh, this is the hit. I get a chance to play the hits with these guys, and what it does is it takes me back to that kid that was sitting in the back seat riding on the way to these concerts to see these greats. And even though I'm on stage, at 34 with you guys, I really am just a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, listening to these songs. So I definitely appreciate you guys for letting me hang along.
That's the reason why we do what we do, right? Things just like that. So my next question goes to a remarkable woman, and I just love her background, her story, and everything. This is for Miss Keiko Matsui. So Keiko, we absolutely know you to be the consummate maestro on the piano. But you also are a composer and compose a lot of your own stuff. Yeah, and so when did you go from being a pianist and decide to become a composer?
Thank you for the question, and good morning. Well, actually, like elementary school era, thank you. I was into, of course, playing piano, but I was very active child and fighting against bad boys and doing a school thing. And at the same time, I took piano lessons, and then also like very little small song, but I started composing, like writing diary. So sometime like school trip made me inspiration, and I wrote a Green Lake or that kind of thing. But when I was in high school, I had a very special opportunity to compose for the Japanese big serious movie soundtrack. And when director gave me the book, original book, and he was explaining about the his image, and then suddenly this melody from introduction to the main theme came to me. And that's the time, it was very, very special moment. And so since then, I started receiving the melodies. And then when I saw the finished work of this major movie, at the Toho studio. Toho is the company made a Godzilla. So, and when I saw the movie and the end title with the orchestra and my melody was going on with all the credit, and I felt like, wow. And I really dreamed about composing for the movie and all these sound, making soundtrack besides my original compositions, for myself. So that was a very special opportunity and made me inspiration, and I want to create. Actually, student era, I was trying to compose, but since then I start catching, and I'm catching from somewhere. I received the melodies, and that became like, okay, I would like to keep doing this as a composer.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
You know we all got to go back and start watching Godzilla again just so we can hear what she composed, okay? I'm actually going to turn this one thing over to Mr. Peter White, because we all know how interesting everything he does is.
Well, I have questions too. And I want to direct a question to Jonathan Butler, who I've known many years. Jonathan, I know you, well, we all know you grew up in South Africa, but you became a recording artist at a very young age. And is it true that your mother signed your recording contract?
My mother signed my life away.
Tell us about that.
She signed my life away and took all the money. Well, I was, I'm one of 13 children. I'm the baby of 13. You yourself? Oh man, there was no television back in those days. So you had to entertain yourself. My dad was bent over after when I was born. I said, oh my God, Dad, why are you so short? He was busy. I got signed. Well, prior to getting signed, I was, my brother and my sister, my oldest brother and my sister was touring and performing all over the South African, from Zimbabwe to, and so they would come home and they would tell their stories, but I was singing, on my own. I was like always singing, always, grab my brother's guitar and play it, and so I started. When my parents heard me sing, my mother started putting me in our family talent shows, and so my first performance was in the community at a family talent show, and the first song was Delilah by Tom Jones.
Delilah.
I sang Delilah by Tom Jones. I really thought he was a black guy. Because he had like a fro, like type of fro, and so I would hear him on the radio, and I was like, this man sounds so soulful. So that was the song my parents chose for me to sing. And I'll never forget it, Peter. I sang the song, and something, the Holy Spirit came upon me. I was 7 years old, and I fell on my knees with a microphone singing Delilah, my, Delilah. But something told me to get on my knees. Now, if you've been to Africa, if they love you, they'll throw money on the stage. And so people started throwing money on the stage. And then I stopped singing. I dropped the mic, and I picked up the money, and I just said, my brothers came and brought me back to finish the song. I had to finish the song. So suddenly, I then became sort of a little household name. I started playing with bands and cabaret shows, and I did the carnival. Every year I did the carnival. Malay choirs, I sang, and I won first prizes in the Malay choirs. I won prizes in the carnival, Cape Town Carnival festivals every year. And then I got discovered by these two guys that founded Jive Records, and they came to see my mom, and they wanted to sign me, take me to Johannesburg, and I was signed. And the first record I made, as back then they used to call it 7 singles, it's a little 7 singles, and so it's 1973 was the first time that my single came out on radio.
How old?
I was like 12.
Wow.
And it went to number 2 in the pop charts. and I got 2 gold records and a Grammy Award, South African Grammy Award. And I didn't know, man, it was just an incredible time. It was just something, and ever since, you know, I've been signed to somebody. Somebody got my money somewhere. Somebody owes me money. Somebody owes all of y'all money over here. You better find your money, goddammit.
All of us are owed money somewhere, I think.
Well, that's how it started, and I still love this thing called music. I love life more than, you know, it's so much more important to be a nice person, you know, not just talented, but be a nice person, you know. So I still love music. I still did you guys enjoy last night? Did you guys have fun last night? Yeah, that was my new band. I finally put a new band together, and that was our first time that we played, and we had a ball with you last night. So thank you for coming out last night. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jonathan Butler. Well, all right. So, you always got to go to the gentleman. You always got to go to the gentleman. All that experience and background and everything. So, Rick Braun. What'd I do? So, we know, or if they don't know, Rick is a big Chuck Mangione fan and is in the middle of a project right now that is, I'm sure, absolutely magnificent. So, did you ever meet him? Did you ever meet him?
Testing, 1, 2, testing. I did. I met Chuck finally. It's funny because we have, one of the reasons that I wanted to do a tribute to him because we share a lot of history. We both went to the Eastman School of Music. We both left the Eastman School of Music early. Chuck was he attended the school, and then he was the jazz band director up until 1973. And 1973 was the year that I came to the Eastman School of Music. So he was leaving and I was coming in, so we didn't meet then. He has a brother named Gap Mangione, who was a big band, and I played in that big band when I was at Rochester. And then, you know, things were going well, and the best musicians that went to the Eastman School never finished the school. We all got picked up or left or never, and I'm one of those people. I dropped out before my senior year to go to California and got a record deal and started recording records and trying to forge a career. And Chuck did the same thing. He left the school to go on and record songs like Feels So Good and Land of Make Believe and all of that stuff. But the whole time I was at Eastman for those 3 years, Chuck's music had such a huge influence on me because I went from being like this big fish in a very small pond of Allentown, Pennsylvania, to being thrown in amongst all of these incredible musicians. And Chuck's music to me always brought an element of serenity and peace, and the melodies just lifted me up. And so when Chuck passed, July 22nd this last year, I had already been playing with Richard, Feels So Good. We've been doing that in the show for about 1.5 years. And when Chuck passed, I really wanted to pay tribute to him. And so I started this project, and it's been an absolute labor of love, and I was so grateful to have people like Grant Geisman, who played the original solo on Feels So Good, that iconic guitar solo. He was really happy to be a part of it, and Tom Scott, who also was of that era, played on the record. But the question was, did I ever meet Chuck Mangione? I never met him when I was at Eastman. I never met him all those years. And it took until I played the Long Beach Jazz Festival. I was there with Norman Brown and with Kirk Whalum, BWB. And yeah, we were doing the show, and Chuck was also on the bill. And I mustered up the courage after not meeting him all these years and, you know, hero worship, you know. I was like Ralph Cramden. But I managed to knock on his door, and the door opens, and there he is with the hat, with the beard, all Chuck Mangione. You know, it was no doubt that was Chuck Mangione. So I said, Chuck, I'm Rick Braun. I went to Eastman. You know, we have a lot in common, and I just love your music. And he was one of the nicest people in the world. Grover Washington was the same way. And he just invited me in, and we sat down and talked for about an hour. And then I had to go play my show. So I was like on cloud 9, and I say, I have to go, Chuck. I have to go play the show. And he says, I'm leaving. And as I'm leaving, he says, wait a minute. I want to give you something. And he goes into his trumpet case, and he gave me his mouthpiece, his flugelhorn. Now that's a very personal thing, and I'm speechless. And I said, well, this is your mouthpiece, you know. Why? He said, no, I want you to have it, you know. And he gave it to me. And on the recording, I Feel So Good on the record, I used that mouthpiece to play the beginning. There's that slow section that I did last night during the show. So on the recording, I used Chuck's mouthpiece to perform that on the record, and it was a very special moment.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that story. That's incredible. You got one?
Yes, my question is actually for Darren Ron and Greg Manning, two incredible musicians, but also known as super producers in smooth jazz radio. They've worked with just about everybody, producing hit after hit after hit. So incredible musicians, but what was the defining moment where you decided this is the path that I'm going to take as opposed to touring on a regular basis? Why did you, and you can both answer this, why did you decide to go the producer route? And I must say that they both have such a great ear for hit songs. So what made you go that route as producers?
It was convenience. I could stay in my pajamas. That's the honest answer. No. I'm actually not sure. You know, it just happened kind of organically. And as I said at the show yesterday, it's such a great thing. I love studio work. You can go very much into details and spend an hour on a reverb, but nothing has the energy of a live performance. And it's just incredible to interact with an audience, with you guys. So it's just a great thing to be here.
Great answer, Greg. Yeah, I had no plans on becoming a producer. So for me, saxophone was my passion, and I thought that was the end-all, be-all. And you know, sometimes we have plans in life, and God laughs. I had been working incredibly hard. I'm going to try to shorten this story up, but Peter had asked me to share this. So I had been working incredibly hard for 10 or 15 years, and typical musician story, you know, going for record deals, getting rejected, all those things. And so I just continued to work on music. I thought, you know, people can decide what they want to do with you, but the one thing they can't stop me from making good music. And so I just focused on that. And one day, through a series of pretty unusual events, I get a phone call, and it said 818, so I knew that was LA. And so I picked up the phone, and a voice on the other end said, "Hi, Darren, this is Dave Koz." And this was the early 2000s. He said, we just started a small label, and we'd like to meet you. Could you come to LA? And so I did. And they listened to my record, and I met with them, and they were super gracious.
You were living in Denver at the time, right?
Yeah, still in Denver now. So yeah, I flew from Denver to LA, and they listened to the record, and they said, well, we love it. It's great, but we can't sign you. And I said, okay. And they said, no, we really do like it, but we're a brand new label, we're very small, and we just happened to sign another saxophone player. And he happens to be sitting beside me right now. He's amazing, isn't he? I would have signed him too. Michael is one of my favorite sax players. The level of control he has is incredible. So, anyway, so, you know, and I didn't know Michael, so I just went back to my hotel room devastated. I get a call the next morning. They said, hey, that music you gave us, who produced it? Who wrote it? Who made it? I said, well, I did. And they said, well, can we hire you to do that? And I said, okay, I never thought about that, but sure. And they said, we overnighted your record to Wayman Tisdale. And he's flying in on Thursday. And I was supposed to leave LAX at 7 p.m. So they set up a 4 p.m. meeting for me at the little offices there at Rendezvous. And Wayman said, I love your record. Will you produce a song for me? So I had never even considered that as a career option. So I produced that song for him. 9 days later, I came back to LA and worked with a mix engineer. And that was Ain't No Stopping Us Now. Yeah. So 9 weeks later, it was #1 on Billboard, and I have to say this is the providence of when you find your path, the path that God gave me. So I can thank Michael for this because since that day,
Jonathan, does he owe me money?
I have. Michael just asked if I owe him money, probably. Since that day, I have never picked up the phone for work. And so it was an incredible life lesson. I'm so blessed. And it was also a lesson, and the thing I probably want to leave with everyone is, you know, we get up here and do what we do. We can't do it without you guys, but at the end of the day, it's what we do when we help others, when we serve others. See, everything that happened to me as an artist didn't come from me trying to go get it. It came from me trying to help other people. And so that's the big lesson for me.
And I want to add...
Great story.
And I want
to
add two things to that, because Wayman and I were really good friends. And I said to Wayman one time, why Darren Ron as your producer? And Wayman said, it's not just about the music, it's about the connection that we have. And I think, Darren, you connect with everybody that you've produced, and you're very spiritual, and Wayman loved that about you.
Yeah, and we got to work together just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
It was, yeah, we had a blast.
Thanks for sharing.
Lastly, Darren and his brother, his twin brother now, have music on the radio as the Ron Brothers. So you are doing more out front with yourself, because I also asked you, how did you give away Ain't No Stopping Us Now, and do you ever keep any of the hit songs for yourself?
Well, you know, music comes and goes, right? And everyone that's sitting here will tell you their stories about, you don't sit down and say, this is the hit. Something just happens. While you're writing, it comes to, you wish every song was like that, and it's just not. But every once in a while you sit down, and like Keiko was saying, the music came to her, right? And that's kind of what happens, and you can't take that for granted, because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, we don't decide the hits. You guys decide the hits. We just try to make the best music that we can.
Thank you for that, by the way. So one of the coolest things and one of the greatest stories, and we all love this because you can actually visualize it as he talks about it, okay? I'm going to defer to Mr. Elliott over here, but I'm going to do his in two parts, and there's a reason for that. Richard was summoned to be one of the Tower of Power horns. Do you know how incredible it is for the Tower of Power to say, yeah, we want that guy, okay? But there's another thing that I want him to address on, as much as he feels comfortable to do. He started this incredible diet, which has transformed him physically, mentally, spiritually, and everything like that. And I think we'd like to know a little bit about that. So you start with whichever end of that you want.
Okay. Well, I try not to call it a diet, because that kind of gives it a temporary aspect. It's really a lifestyle change. I started getting gout in my foot, and it was kind of hard to get on stage and play a show when you're dealing with gout. And I said, I just don't want to deal with this pain anymore. Went to the doctor, and he said, okay, well, I'll give you this pill. And I said, well, how long do I take the pill? He said, for the rest of your life. I said, okay, can I try diet first and see if that works? And he looked at me like I had a screw loose. But he said, yeah, if you want, you have to cut out this, and this. So basically, I avoid anything that tastes good. And it seems to have worked. So, no, but actually, I became a vegetarian. Actually a vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian about 4 years ago now. And it's just been something. Yes, pain is a good motivator. So, and for me, it's definitely. I mean, aside from losing the weight, I feel great. So I think that's the most important thing. I feel healthy. So. Anyways, so Tower of Power. It's interesting listening to Darren talk about your path in life and how you define that path and how you end up going down that path. I think about this quite a bit. Like, my parents started me on the accordion first when I was 9 years old. And I wonder if I would have experienced the life I have if I had continued to play the accordion. Not that there's anything wrong with that, Peter, because Peter plays accordion. But luckily for me, I didn't like the accordion, and also the fact that they passed a law in California, play an accordion, go to prison. I actually managed to get away from the accordion and pick the saxophone when I was 11 years old. So it's just interesting what choices in life and what things define your path. Is it a choice, and where did that choice come? What was the motivation behind that choice? Is it God? Is it a higher power? What pushes you down that path? And I think if you're just open to life just kind of puts you down these paths, and it's still amazing to me. But yes, I did get a phone call one day. I was 22 years old. I was a struggling musician. And I'd been playing around town, doing a little bit of studio work and playing in clubs. And
Which town? Los Angeles, right?
Sorry?
Los Angeles.
Yes. In Los Angeles. I'd done a few different things. I went on the road with a few different artists, the Beach Boys and Ricky Lee Jones. And I was just doing the thing as a starving musician, trying to make my way, trying to be heard, trying to meet people. And I got a phone call one day from the manager of Tower of Power. And I thought it was a joke at first. Like, the manager of Tower of Power is calling me. Why would that be? Maybe one of their saxophone players needed a good repairman for their saxophone or something. But he said, yeah, Mark Russo, the current lead sax player with Tower of Power, is leaving. He's going to play with the Yellow Jackets, and we're looking for someone to replace him. Would you be interested? Okay, so the manager of probably the greatest horn band in history has asked me if I'd be interested in playing with Tower of Power. I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, okay, well, they're playing tomorrow night at the Palomino, which is a club that is no longer there in Los Angeles. And it's probably yeah, Rick knows. It's probably good that it's gone. They're playing at the Palomino tomorrow. Why don't you come down? You can meet Emilio Castillo, the leader of the band. And why don't you bring your horn? Maybe you can sit in on a song. It's like, okay, I'll be there. So I show up at the Palomino the next night. It's packed. They took all the seats out of the place because it was standing room only. And immediately, I just kind of got the fear of God and like, oh my goodness, this is real. This is actually happening. So I went back and I met Emilio in the dressing room. We talked for a little while, and he said, okay, well, I see you brought your horn. You want to play? I said, yeah, absolutely. What song do you want me to play on? He said, oh, just play on the whole show. So now, as a horn player, I pretty much know every Tower of Power song, at least to listen to, but not to play. And I said, the whole show. He said, yeah, come on, it'll be fun. I said, okay, do you have any sheet music? And he said, oh, no, we don't have any sheet music. I was like, okay, now I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Get up and play these songs that I sort of know but don't really know. And I'm freaking out now. I'm like, this is going to be a catastrophe, and I'll never get past it. And it's just, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So we go out on stage, And Mark Russo, the guy that I would be presumably replacing, was there also. And I'm freaking out now because I don't know what I'm going to play. And we get on stage, packed audience, everyone's pumped up and ready to go. I'm freaking out, and just as we're ready to play, Emilio leans over to me and he says, "Oh, just watch Mark for the dance steps." So I'm like, okay. So anyways, the whole night, the next hour and a half or 2 hours is a big blur to me. Even today, I couldn't tell you what actually occurred during that 2-hour period. All I could remember was two things. Anytime I would like have to play a solo, Emilio would lean over and he'd go, "Blow!" And I just start playing, like just freaking out, playing just fanatically. And then the other thing was I felt kind of like a pinball in a pinball machine, because every time they do the dance steps, I get like banged back and forth. But I got through it. I don't know how, and somehow I got the gig. So there it is.
I love that story.
Does it get any better than that? Does it ever get any better than that? Wow. So this question is for our host. And the trajectory of a lot of these artists is so incredible, as you've witnessed and you've heard. But how they got to where they are right now is a very important part of who they are. So the question I'm going to ask to Peter White is this. What was it and what occurred that brought you here to America?
Well, when I was growing up, I watched American TV shows. And I never thought I would ever go to America because that was just, a pipe dream. And but I became a musician when I was 19. And when I was 20, I met a singer called Al Stewart, and I played the song that we wrote together yesterday, Time Passages. And he said, oh, well, we were touring around England, and then he says, okay, we're going to America. Do you have a passport? And I didn't. So I went to apply for a passport and got it in time, and off we are. Landed in Philadelphia, 1975, yes. Go Eagles. Yeah. And that was a very exciting time. I think in the first week I was in America, I met Freddie Mercury and the other members of Queen. We were just opening up for them. And Al said to me, Al Stewart said, hey, I know one of those guys, the drummer, I know the drummer. Let's go into their dressing room. And I said, we can't just go into their dressing room. Yeah, well, sure we can. So I remember this because all my memory is visual, and I remember Freddie staring at me. Well, I was 20 years old and wearing very tight trousers at the time. I said, why is Freddie staring at me? I said, hey Freddie, hey, nice to meet you. Anyway, a few days later, I arrived in Los Angeles, which is where I now live, and we stayed at the Continental Hyatt House on Sunset Boulevard, which is also known as the Riot House, because Led Zeppelin was staying there. And they were there at the same time, and I thought, wow, this is like big time. And I walked into the elevator with my, I had a guitar, and I had a Les Paul guitar, and I just bought that guitar like 2 days earlier. The reason I bought the Les Paul guitar was because I knew that Jimmy Page played the Les Paul guitar, the guitar player from Led Zeppelin. And I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan, and I didn't even know there was a person called Les Paul. This is how ignorant I was, growing up in England. I just knew this was the guitar that Jimmy Page played, and the elevator door opened, and in walks Jimmy Page. And it's just me and him, and I'm just like, my life is flashing in front of my eyes. I look down at the top of his head, and he's not that much shorter than me, but I was wearing 4-inch stack heels at the time. Because Yeah, you can picture that, can't you? Yeah. I wish I still had those shoes. I've been looking for them. Because, you know, whenever we have 70s night, I'm thinking, oh, I could put on the 4-inch heels. But that was a very exciting time, and I think a couple of years later, Al Stewart decided that he wanted to leave London and live in Los Angeles and live in Hollywood and live the life of a rock star, because he was for a couple of years a big rock star, and then he called me over to help him finish an album, and actually to also do a TV show. We did the Merv Griffin show. Yeah, this is how far back this goes. January 1978, we did the Merv Griffin show, and then we finished an album in Los Angeles, an album called Time Passages, which is the follow-up to this Year of the Count album, and I just stayed. I wanted to keep my gig, so I knew if I went back to England, he would probably hire someone else, so I just kind of stayed around, and I've been living in Los Angeles now ever since 1978, which happened to be the perfect place for me when I started doing my own music, because it's kind of the center of the center of music business. If I was in London, I don't think any of this would have happened. But all the people I met Rick Braun, I met Richard. We started playing shows together. This is going back like 30 years almost. So it's the best thing that ever happened to me, actually, coming to America. And the avenues for me playing my music were much greater than if I had stayed in England. So, thank you.
So, Peter is not the only convert, okay? Because all the way from Denmark, we were gifted with the talent of Michael Lincoln. But Michael, what got you here to America?
A very big dream about being in America, and I grew up playing the clarinet, and it was a moment in time where I just knew that wasn't really what I was meant to do, and I was so influenced by American music, and all the cool stuff came from America. So I started listening to a lot of the records and a lot of the soul music. I was very attracted to that soul music, and just resonated with me. And then, of course, along comes David Sanborn, and for me, I listened to a lot of different sax players, but what it was for me with David Sanborn was the fact that he sort of played all the styles. He could play jazz, he could play R&B, he could play pop, he could play soul, and it was accessible. Charlie Parker was not accessible to me. It was too advanced for me, but Sanborn really could do it all, and that's something I could sink my teeth into. And I just had this dream about coming here, living here, and what was so interesting is I finally had the courage to come with a saxophone and a suitcase, and it's really true. I just kind of took off. Of course, everybody's like, go, they all thought I'd be back after a couple of months. And I knew as soon as I was here, I wanted to stay here. I just knew it right away, and I never went back, and I just, it was the environment I wanted to be in, is everything that I'd hoped it to be, and I just was so lucky to meet the right people at the right time, and my first professional gig was probably one of the greatest saxophone gigs you could really ask for, which was touring and being Bobby Caldwell's sax player. And he's so funny because I think we'd only been on the road for a week, and he said, "Michael, you should think about making a record. All my other sax players has already gone on to have amazing careers. I took over from Boney James and in Bobby's band, and Richard was there for many years, and Dave Koss, of course, and make a record and do it before it's too late." And I remember at that moment saying, "I don't know how to make a record, but if I do, will you sing on it?" He said, "Sure." So that was great motivation. So we figured it out. We made a record, and my first single ever from that record was the duet I did with Bobby, "Tell It Like It Is." Yeah, so, everybody has a story where something leads to another, like in Peter's case, Al Stewart. And so you know, we all need each other's help to continue doing what we do. And it's been 36 years now living in America. No, I'm not going back to Denmark.
Hey, Michael, you got to tell them the story about. You talk about Denmark. I got a little story for you guys. You know, with this incredible friend of mine, Michael Linton. So we on the Dave Carr's cruise in Denmark, and so Dave decides to have Michael be the tour guide, you know, in his hometown in Denmark. So we on this boat, you know, and Michael has the microphone to tell us all about Denmark, the statues, the history of the place, you know. Turns out Michael didn't know his own city.
I forgot it
So
all.
Michael, I just start laughing on the boat. I crack up, or we all cracking up, because Michael didn't know a damn thing about his own home. We like, Michael, what's that? Well, I think it's a guy on a horse. And what is that, Michael? You know, I'm not sure. Let me give the mic to my dad. So he gives the mic to his dad. All I can see is his dad's back of his dad's head. So I'm like, hey, that guy with the white hair, he doesn't know the place either. Michael is like, hey man, that's my dad, JB. That's my dad.
It's true, but
just
you know,
to go to Denmark with him. That's all I'm saying.
But I knew, you know, it's so funny because it's absolutely true, and I thought I had it all down, but then I realized as you're sailing through those canals, I don't know who that guy is up there. I mean, I never looked at this while I was living there, you know, and I've also been in America for like 30-something years, but yeah, we need a different tour guide. Yeah, I was fired immediately from any
That
other
was
further,
so fun,
yeah.
man. It was so fun to see you crack.
Thank you for that. That is
Absolutely.
incredible.
That was a great story. Great story.
Also, and my background's in radio, and so I've played all of these artists for years. We've all been friends for years, and you know, there's absolutely nothing like hearing the music that we all love. We love hearing the songs played live, but we know them because we've been listening to them on the radio. Some of the ones that Peter played when he did his Unplugged show just sounded so good. So my question is about radio, because I've been playing the music all these years, still do, and I'm going to ask Rebecca and BK, since they're the newbies up here, hearing your music on the radio for the first time. And BK, by the way, is part of a group called the TNR Collective. They had the #1 smooth jazz song in the country last week on the Billboard music charts. So talk about the group that you worked with, and how did it feel getting a #1 hit and hearing it on the radio? And Rebecca will ask you the same question.
Well, thank you. I told you guys earlier that you know, that those summer shows were guitar and saxes, and so I had the opportunity about a year and a half ago to get approached by Trippin' in Rhythm, which is a record company in the industry. And when I got and I agreed to the terms and said, okay, I'll get on board, I called Jeff Lunt, who's our radio rep at the label and one of the executives, and I said, hey, I grew up on this guitars and saxes show, and I would really like if I could go get my buddy Adrian Lamec and Ryan Lavalette, and can we kind of recreate, because I hadn't seen the guitars and saxes build as such, you know, in a while. And I said, you know, I really want to bring that back together, and maybe we could just do a show at Seabreeze. And that's what it was. And when we got together on a Zoom call, because Ryan Lavalette lives all over the world. At times he's in Australia, at other times he's in Europe, and he's just everywhere. So we get on a Zoom call, and we get on and we just talking back and forth, and the chemistry was really there. Well, that turned into just trying to do a show at Seabreeze, into recording 4 songs, and like you said, doing colors. And it was an interesting way to record, because, you know, traditionally back in the day, you kind of needed everybody in the same room to get these records done. Well, today with technology, you know, one person's able to record their part, we send it to another person, we send it to another person, then you send it to another person, and then you hear their solos, and you say, yeah, I'm going to re-record my solo to match. But it was very much it was an interesting way of recording than what I normally record in, but it was so fun to do. And getting a chance to kind of hear, everybody up here can tell you that feeling that you get when it's on the radio, or somebody calls and tell you that your song is on the radio. And that feeling to me was, if I don't really have the word right now, but it's humbling, to say the least, to say, man, this was an idea that started on a Zoom call, and we go through the process of recording it, and now it's out in the world and being accepted, by the professional realm, into the hands of the public, and then for the public to receive it and, obviously request and help us get to #1 on Billboard. It's one of the most warmest feelings of almost confirmation to say, hey, I guess I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And thank you guys for the support.
And Rebecca, you hearing your music on the radio.
It's pretty surreal. I'm feeling it currently too because of the song with Andrea, Lisa, and myself. The Watercolors has been playing it a lot, and we're so grateful. Yeah, it's kind of a trip to see it. And we're driving in the car. I remember a couple weeks ago I was driving. We live in San Diego, and we're driving at a show at Spaghettini in Seal Beach, and we're driving, and the song came on. I'm like, that's my song. It's just, I don't know, it's such a surreal feeling because it's you work hard, and also there's not really a manuscript of jumping, becoming a professional artist, and also there's different levels to this thing. So I was a professional singer for 20 years before I even came into this, 10, 15 years before I came into this smooth jazz world. And so I feel like I'm starting over in a way because it's all brand new to me. And then I became really an artist only 5 years ago or 4 years ago. That's a whole new world. So I'm learning along the way, everything. I feel like I'm just learning. So then it's okay, you got to get a song, try to get on the radio, and it's you're navigating this thing, and everybody up here has been so I know I can call at them and I just get information from all these wonderful artists, and just how to navigate, and yeah, so it's just a surreal feeling because I know that I've been told by many people try to get on the radio, find a radio promoter that'll push your stuff, so that's what we're doing, and we found a gem that's been picked up, so it's very cool, it's very surreal, and I hope for more.
Well, I hope all of you have had an opportunity to be more immersed into the lives and backgrounds of the people who spend their lives making you happy. And we want to say thank you to each and every one of these artists, because the truth of the matter is that they're not just giving you music. Every time they take a stage, every time they go into a studio, every time they stand up to do what they do, they're giving you a piece of themselves. And this is an opportunity to show our appreciation for the love that they've given us, and hopefully they're feeling the love that we give back to them. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to these incredible people sitting here on this stage. And we want to take an opportunity to thank each and every one of you for all of your support, not just for them, but for the Florida Smooth Jazz Foundation. We certainly could not do what we do without you coming out to do this. And Dr. Kathy Powers takes that energy and that love and puts it back out into the community so that young people can perpetuate this incredible thing we call jazz and original American music. So thank you very much for all of that. And so we have to say goodbye now, but just for now, because I hope you folks will continue to come back. Also, I'm going to remind you of something. This is very important, and don't miss it. The Rick Braun New Year's Eve at Shingle Creek is an experience of a lifetime, and if you miss it, you will have missed it. So I encourage you to go and start making your reservations now, because when it goes, it disappears. So we definitely want to see you in the new year, okay? With that, folks, on behalf of Kathy Powers of Florida Smooth Jazz Foundation, on behalf of my co-host, Miss Becky Taylor, and of course, our host, Mr. Peter White, thank you so much. Get home safe and share the love that you brought here with the rest of the world. Thank you. So you guys...